audience members are their own and are not connected to or reviewed in advance by Warehouse38.tv. Any issues arising from this webcast or its contents should be directed to the individual commentators. Warehouse38.tv is not responsible for the veracity of any of the following content.
TV is dedicated to education about modern pagan religions and is committed to the protection, welfare, and guardianship of the rights of all people to worship as their hearts and minds dictate. Modern Pagan TV considers education of the non-pagan public and of our own world community about pagan religions to be of paramount importance and encourages open dialogue across all platforms with the understanding that all voices have an equal right to be heard. Modern Pagan TV encourages participation in multiple spiritual events as the tradition and the individual deems appropriate and maintains that courtesy and open-mindedness and not denigration are paramount to any discussion. So sit back or join in. Modern Pagan TV is streaming live.
The pitch got higher, all the drums went out to the edge, and it got higher, and it got loud, and the girls were out screaming and, shrieking and dancing. And when it got to this peak, it just stopped, dead silence. It was beautiful.
Good evening, and welcome to pagans all across the world, or at least the ones that are watching.
Well, no, we can say hello to everybody.
Hello to everybody, even if they aren't watching.
Absolutely.
So
they could be watching on YouTube.
That's true. It's good to be back. I
Yes.
heard you guys had a few problems last week.
A little bit. What did you say, Terry Pratchett said?
Yeah, there was Terry Pratchett has a quote that says,
He's one of my
in a million...
favorite authors, by the way.
Yeah, Sir Terry, I should say.
Sir
Terry Pratchett said, 1 in a million chances happen 9 times out of 10. And last week, from what I heard, there were 2 universal power supplies that went bad at the exact same time.
Crash,
right
boom,
before the show started.
boom,
I don't know whether it was
yeah,
Mercury
gone.
retrograde, whether it was sunspots, but I mean, the odds against that are pretty astronomical as a gamer. But like I said, 9 out of 10 times, 1 in a million chances. So I'm glad we're back this week and that people are able to watch us live streaming. This is your show. Remember that?
Right.
So all of you who are watching, make sure you sign on to the chat room and try to send us stuff. We'll try to see if we can get this.
Or sign on to Facebook.
Facebook,
Because
okay.
I think the chat room is...
Do they have that on Facebook now? Cool.
Yeah.
No, they isn't. No, they don't. Pretend that we didn't say that. Don't sign into Facebook or watch us instead.
No, they can sign into Facebook, right? Yeah, no, they can sign
Okay.
into Facebook. We're waiting right now. We have it
Okay.
up. We're ready.
What you got?
Yeah, it's different. This is different. This is only for us. This is a special Facebook thing. Only it's a secret thing. So we don't want anybody else in our
Do
club.
Do I have to be initiated?
Yeah, you will. We'll do that later.
Okay.
I brought the paddle and everything.
Oh,
okay,
all
so
And the chocolate.
how's your week?
And the chocolate.
Lots of chocolate.
Yeah.
Lots and
My
lots.
week was absolutely astonishing. I got to go back east and spend some time with family, so that was always cool.
I got to see John Carter of Mars. I have to say,
Did you?
I
Was
saw
it
that.
good? Was it good?
I read that book when I was like 12 years old, and I was like totally in love with it. And when I heard that Disney was going to be doing it, I was a little worried because I remember Tarzan. But if Edgar Rice Burroughs was alive, he'd have been standing up and cheering with the rest of us. It was
Seriously.
fantastic. I had so much fun. You know,
All right, good.
Starks are cool.
All right.
Cool. So I
That's
guess the
exciting.
first thing we need to do today is have our astrology report.
Absolutely.
It's like, and there we are with the weather. Well, the astrology report.
Yeah.
Weather.
Yeah.
Take it away.
The star.
Stars. It's full of stars.
My name is Kat Lindgren, and I would like to welcome you to Flying Through the Skies, a Witch's View of the Cosmos, Modern Pagan TV's weekly astrological report. This report is for the week beginning March 11th, 2012. For our solar report, the sun continues through Pisces, the sign of the fishes. Pisces is a fruitful, mutable, common, feminine expression of water, and is currently in the third decant of the sign of Pisces. The ruler for this decant is Pluto. Mars was assigned ruler to this decant prior to 1930. With the planetary ruler of Pluto, we are concerned with the transformational qualities of Pisces. With Pisces, this is the time to burn through some karmic issues that we have been holding back. We are preparing for the sun to move forward into the sign of Aries, which will want to propel us forward on our journey. The stage is set to clear the way from that which is holding us back. Do not be deceived by this placement of the sun. Even with this dreamy Piscean quality, there is a fanatical fierceness that accompanies this placement. Now for our moon report. We begin the week off with a waning moon in Scorpio. The moon entered Scorpio at 11:24 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Saturday, March 10th. The moon goes void, of course, Monday at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and will enter Sagittarius at 10:54 p.m. Mountain Standard Time the same day. The moon leaves Sagittarius on Wednesday, March 14th at 11:34 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and will enter the sign of the water goat Capricorn at 1:24 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on the same day. The moon leaves Capricorn on Saturday, March 17th at 5 a.m. and enters Aquarius, the sign of the water bearer, at 8:11 a.m. the same day. Now for our magical timing and moon rites. This cycle supports work that diminishes or reduces. In framing intent for spell work or rites, we can work with any cycle if we alter the context of what we are asking and shape the words and work to support that. Suppose we need to increase our finances during a moon that does not support calling to us more. By altering the wording and the work to support a diminishing of debt or bills or anything that needs to be reduced is a way that we can work with moon cycle energies. Work that is inward-looking is also supported. For example, during this moon cycle, we are supported with the Sagittarius moon all day Tuesday and most of Wednesday. Working with a diminishing moon in an expansive sign like Sagittarius can be accomplished by exploring spiritual topics that shift the internal self. Meditations and group study that has a personal application are supported. So is reducing the Jupiterian expansive energies of a growing waistline. We also have a good deal of time to work with Capricorn energies. Earth signs like to build, so if we are not supported in growing our reputation or career in the world, maybe we can refine what we would like that career or reputation to look like. Or we can remove obstacles to our career and blemishes from our reputations. Now for the retrograde watch. Mars continues its retrograde in Virgo and will remain so until Friday, April 13th, 2012 at 10:53 a.m. when it will turn direct. Mars represents direct energy, physical expression, individual action, and assertiveness, as well as anger, desire, sexuality, competitiveness, and motivation for self-interest. Mars energies tend to burst forward, exerted in short duration. Every 2 years, Mars goes retrograde for 2 to 2.5 months. What often results are upsets and frustrations in our daily life as emotions which should be externalized become internalized. A kind of chewing up of oneself. When you finally do explode, it is as likely as not that in doing so you will be acting out aggressively against your own self-interest. Saturn continues its retrograde sojourn through Libra and will remain so until June 25th at 3 a.m. of this year when it turns direct. Saturn deals with karma, limits, responsibility, traditions, conservatives, authority, long-term goals, and accomplishments. Taking responsibility, creating structure, and setting boundaries. Once a year, the planet Saturn goes into retrograde for about 4.5 months. During this influence, you will probably find it unwise to attempt sudden changes or to rush through things. Take practical steps and accept limitations while you take serious steps towards your long-term goals. Saturn retrograde can cause you to become your own worst taskmaster, limit your actions, or leave you feeling blocked and pessimistic. On March 12, 2012, at 7:49 a.m., Mercury turned retrograde in Aries and will back up into Pisces during this retrograde cycle. Mercury will remain retrograde until April 4th, 2012 at 10:11 a.m. when it turns direct. Mercury involves mental processes, communication of all kinds, exploring ideas, seeking knowledge, writing, public speaking, making contacts, even short trips and commerce fall into Mercury's domain. Mercury is retrograde at least 3 times each year and is our most frequently retrograde planet. During this usually 3-week time frame, misunderstandings increase, mail and email gets lost, messages are delayed or appear elsewhere, misdirection and frustration with miscommunications of all kinds tend to intensify. Odd ideas tend to occur as normal abilities and patterns of writing, learning, and speech become disrupted. For a few, this retrograde actually has the opposite effect. New ideas, new speaking or writing abilities are often revealed in folks whose natal Mercury is retrograde. Are you normally hesitant or afraid to speak out? Do you find yourself very concerned with how others will take your words or what will happen if you speak your mind? You few may tend to get a kind of vacation from or improvement in both your usual internal and external dialogue. Now for our planet tracker. During this cycle, we have Mercury in Aries, Venus in Taurus, Mars in Virgo, Jupiter in Taurus, Saturn in Libra, Uranus in Aries, Neptune in Pisces, Pluto in Capricorn, and Chiron in Pisces. On behalf of Modern Pagan TV, we would like to thank you for joining us for Modern Pagan TV's Flying Through the Skies astrological segment, and we hope to see you next week.
Okay.
Well, that certainly explains what's going on.
Yeah, the whole retrograde thing, huh?
Yeah, in my life.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, you know, I've always been really friendly with Mercury. I don't know what he's got against us.
I don't know either.
We're like that.
So,
once more, remember, we got a lot of things to tell you here. First off, once more, I want to say this is your show. We need guests. We need
a poster with the goddess saying, we want
you. That's right.
Guys, did you get all that?
Yeah. So so whoever's artsy out there, if they want to do that, we'll give you a special mention in our credits or something.
Hysterical.
But again, this is your show. This is not about us.
I mean,
we
guests. We could rip off the whole Uncle Sam thing.
We could make it anti Samantha. Would be great. So
communications.
Yeah.
Communications. So it would have to be like one of the...
Yeah, what's a good goddess? Why didn't you tell us there's a good goddess of communications? It was always like, for some reason, thrown to guys. So Morrigan. Yeah. The Morrigan. There's only one. Yeah. She only puts stuff out, not getting stuff back, though. So we need guests. We need people who want to come on and talk about interesting things they've done and experienced in the pagan lifestyle. We have studio audience
solitaires.
now.
We don't have any solitaires to come on.
That would be really cool. Yeah, just talk about how it is to have to try to practice by yourself. Right. I'd like to try to talk to somebody from the Norse mythos. Anybody who's practicing Native American or some other native spirituality. If we have any Hellenic or Romantic people here in Denver that would like to come and talk about what they are doing, I would love to see that too.
Oh, I would too. So, I actually found a really cool website about the, not the Hellenics, but the
Romans?
The Romans.
That'd be cool.
And it sounded like they were very active, but I didn't know if there were any here.
Well, if we can find a Roman person, I will wear my Roman armor because I have it. I have to have a reason to put it on.
Okay.
So
and I'll wear a toga.
That'll be good. So you hear that. So if we have anybody who's practicing Roman in Denver, toga and Roman armor for the day. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Music videos. We would like some new music videos. You know, the ones we have are wonderful, but we'd like something new and different. So if there's any other pagan musicians out there, we'd like to see, and you'd like to have some exposure, we'd love to have your stuff sent in. So contact us if you'd like to get some exposure there. So,
how much exposure?
Well, we aren't ruled by the FCC, so you can be about as exposed as we really want. As we're probably going to find out as some of the other.
So, Skyclad music videos, send them on in.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
We're good to go on that one. And advertisers.
Yes.
I'll bet you want to advertise. I bet people want to advertise.
They would. Sooner or later, we're getting a lot more viewers. You can see the viewership going up with each and every show. So, we'd like to be able to, if you'd like your name here, if you have a product, especially if you're kind of international or national, and you have some sort of web-based stuff, because I mean a lot of our people our hits are coming from all over the country, in Canada and Australia. We've got people everywhere watching, so it's a good thing if you've got some sort of web service or product. It's a great place to advertise.
Absolutely.
So keep the lights on here.
Absolutely. So I'm going to do timely tips. This is my little segment, and this is unbelievable. This, my favorite federal dictatorial organization is the FDA. And so now the FDA has decided that walnuts are drugs. Did you know that? Walnuts?
I did not know that.
Absolutely. According to the FDA. And here's their rationale for this. And this is where you can read the article. It's on one of my favorite medical sites, Mercola.com, which is a free subscription service. And the gist of it is there's actual clinical evidence actually published in peer-reviewed medical journals. As a medical writer, I read all this stuff all the time, saying that walnuts are heart healthy. They're a source of omega-3s that can really help prevent some diseases and actually make you better if you have some of them already. So the FDA saw this on their packaging, the Walnut Growers Association on the reg, and came out and said, no, you can't say that. And here's the FDA's rationale. It says, we have determined, that's the royal we.
The royal we.
Okay, so yes, we have determined that your products, that you're promoting your products for conditions that cause them to be drugs, because these products are intended for use in the prevention, mitigation, or treatment of disease. So, in other words, trying to be healthy, now walnuts are a drug. So, the following are examples of the claims that you've made on your website. And what it says is that omega-3, they're talking about omega-3s, and that every time you munch a few walnuts, you're actually dosing your body with drugs. So, in order, according to the FDA, in order to do this, these walnuts have to go through clinical trials. So you have to start by feeding them, to lab rats and then humans, and then double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, which are going to cost millions of dollars. So, in other words, you can no longer claim that walnuts are healthy and that eating them is a good idea.
Well, I guess we'll just have to go underground. We wanted to claim those kind of things, huh?
We have to, yeah. So
spread the word. We're mouth to mouth. Walnut's healthy, not a drug.
Yeah. Let's start at that. I mean, how ridiculous can that possibly be?
Well, you do remember I have some connections in the vet field, and they actually took euthanasia, which is the drug used to do euthanasias, off the market for almost 3 months because the conditions in making it were not sterile enough. And you're talking about a drug that is used to end an animal's life, and it might get an infection from it, so we have to go back and redo it. So
I've noticed that. I've always noticed that.
I'm serious about that.
When they are going to euthanize an animal, they always clean the skin really well first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like it's one of those things. It's like it's a terrible, sad thing, but I mean, it's like seriously, how sterile does a drug used to end life have to be? I mean, I didn't get the FDA, and I have not really been friends, so I'm sure I'm now on their list. Oh my God!
Oh, I know I'm on their list because I post about them all the time. They're on my short list too. Yeah.
Cool. So what else we got going on tonight?
Oh, we have really fun. Ostara.
Mm-hmm.
Other people call it by different names, but it's spring, and eggs are one of the things that we often think about in terms of spring and new life, and the whole sun in the sky and the
yolk
all
coming
this,
out.
Yeah.
Look, there's the ice breaks. We used to do that with the kids. It's like we crack an egg and say the ice breaks, and out comes the sun.
Right.
That was always the egg thing. And the really weird thing is the reason why eggs are so popular here, and we usually do an open ritual for this, is that
don't say they're healthy and they can cure disease.
But
because then you
animals didn't start laying eggs until the daylight was almost 12 hours.
Yeah.
So that this time of year, no matter what religion it was tied into eggs, because that's when people could go out and find eggs even in the wild. And even chickens, you have to have false light. I mean, chickens will stop laying until the sunlight gets long enough again. So, it's my grandpa used to raise chickens. We had to keep the thing, make them believe that there's at least 12 hours. So whenever the equinox came, birds would start laying eggs, and that's why it became this big exciting thing to go find the eggs. And a lot of people think that the dying of the eggs was a kind of remembrance of going out and finding, like, oh, I got a robin egg, oh, I got this egg, and they were all different cool colors and stuff.
I bet that's true.
And we do a whole little lottery thing. We put all sorts of little designs on ours and then put them in a basket, and everybody reaches in, and they have different kind of little blessings and runes and stuff on the eggs, and that was supposed to be your secret for the coming year. So it'll be exciting to see what we have going with the eggs tonight.
So, and I just found out something else about the equinox that I absolutely never knew, that the whole Islamic faith celebrates the equinox, the vernal equinox, as their new year. Which is really, no, I didn't know that either, because, you know, the ancient Egyptians, because we're going to, our big guest today, one of my favorite people, Jorja Fleming, is going to be on, and we're going to talk about the ancient, well, the modern ancient, how does that work?
Yeah, modern practitioners of the ancient religion.
Thank you. I knew we could get that. I knew that we could get that out somehow. Theirs was in like August, you know, with the tears of Isis and the flooding of the Nile, but now that's all changed to the vernal equinox. So I just found that out. I thought that was really cool. They keep stealing stuff from us. Everybody keeps stealing stuff from us.
I know. They want to put us down, but they want to take our good stuff first. Yeah, that's the way it is.
All right, so we're going to go to commercial. I know.
Okay.
We're going to go to commercial, and then we're going to come back, and Carmen is going to, she has a table so full, there's not room for one more egg on this table. We're going to come back and do fun things with eggs.
You're watching Modern Pagan TV. If you'd be interested in advertising on our program or becoming a sponsor, please email info@modernpagan.tv. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Same communication to your unspoken love.
Sarah?
Oh my gosh, she's so cute.
Been doing like I taught you. Love the new tattoo, Sarah.
Dude, that's Sarah. Who's the girl in the pink shirt? That's the girl I was telling you about.
Theater 2 on your left. Hey, Sarah. What color underwear today?
Hey, Sarah. So when are you going to post something new?
Anything you post online, anyone can see. So think before you post.
Hi, I'm an atheist.
And I'm a Christian. What are you reading over there?
Oh, Harry Potter. It's good stuff.
Oh, we don't like that. That's not good.
Well, why not?
Well, it's got all that violence and stuff in it. People die. We can't have this. Young kids are reading this.
Well, yeah, but aren't there entire chapters in the Bible there about cities being laid to waste and stuff?
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's for a good reason. I mean...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right, sex. There's tons of sex in that, I'm sure. Secular book. It's got to be sex.
Actually, there's no sex whatsoever in the Harry Potter series.
All right, well, magic. You can't deny magic. Tons of magic. Devil and magic go hand in hand. I mean, come on.
What exactly do you call it that God does?
Miracles.
Right, so he says something, and then something mysteriously happens.
Yeah, pretty much.
Magic. That's magic, right?
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? The world is going to end now.
Hey, what do you think you're doing?
I have begun a new religion. Here is a pamphlet. It clearly states the path of enlightenment is worth $20 to me.
Why, that's completely within your right. Have a nice day.
It is often said that the tongue is the strongest muscle in the human body.
Flexible, yet firm, it is the rudder.
Just as a small spark can set the entire forest ablaze.
Just as a tiny key can unlock the largest of vaults.
So too is the tongue a key.
It is the key to our articulation,
capable of delivering a person's most powerful convictions.
Don't let your voice go unheard.
This message is brought to you by the NAB Education Foundation, the Broadcast Education Association, McCormick Foundation, and this station.
Our forefathers fought to guarantee the right of religious freedom for all Americans.
The separation of church and state, as guaranteed in our Constitution, must be preserved.
Each day, men and women in our military are being denied this right. How can we let this happen in the greatest nation in the world?
The Military Religious Freedom Foundation is leading the fight for justice for our noble and honorable soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, and veterans.
As we continue to fight in the courts, in the media, and in the minds and hearts of our fellow citizens, we need your support. Please donate to the Military Religious Freedom Foundation by going to militaryreligiousfreedom.org. Your generous tax-deductible pledge will help protect religious freedom in America.
I'm chasing twisters down
If you like what you see here, please donate to modernpagan.tv. Just go to our website, www.modernpagan.tv, and look for the donate button. We appreciate your contributions to keep modernpagan.tv on the air and on the internet. And now, back to live modernpagan.tv.
Consalvo, welcome to the Krafty Kitchen Witch, and of course we're just talking about Astara, and it's time to dye eggs. And I have to tell you guys, I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and every single year we dye eggs. However, this is the first year that we're actually going to do it with the natural stuff. We've got, each year my kids want to try this new kit and that new kit. Yeah. I think this is going to be far more fun because you get to experiment. My 13-year-old has just discovered watercolor paints, which you get to experiment with. And so now we're going to experiment with eggs.
Experiment?
Okay.
Anyway. Stupid yoke. Okay.
I
shall stop.
Okay, so one of the things that you can do, you can find out a lot of information on the internet. So, just key in natural egg dyes or natural Easter egg dyes or something like that, and you get some stuff. This is red, purple, cabbage, whatever you want to call it. And I've actually got some in the pot right here. I'm cooking some eggs up with that, and we're going to see what those look like. Probably we'll look at those at the end of the show.
So those aren't hard-boiled to begin with. You have to
not yet.
Boil those together.
Right. I've got stuff in here that's already hard-cooked.
Okay.
This one here is coffee. It's coffee, everybody. And if you look at it, it's got a nice little golden brown tone here. Look at that. Isn't that pretty?
Kind of beige.
All right. Beige. It's beige-ish. It's coffee-ish. And then I've got one here that is ground turmeric. I've got it wrapped in a cloth because apparently you can wrap it in a cloth and put stuff in the cloth. I've got... oh, look at that. It's pretty. It's orange.
It is pretty.
What I did is I took a fake leaf because, there are no leaves left outside right now. So
not really.
I wrapped it around the egg, and then I put it in the cloth so we can take a look and see what that's going to look like.
So the cloth is your fake leaf?
Well, there's a fake leaf inside the cloth wrapped around the egg to kind of give an imprint on the egg.
Okay, all right.
Now,
so you have a craft leaf in there.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Now, another one they suggest is cumin. It doesn't seem to
dicey.
be doing anything.
This is
like a science experiment.
It is.
And then we've got, this is chili powder. And let's take a look-see.
Yeah, I don't think that would work really
Not much. Now, this might be one that you have to cook a little bit. We've got wine, but I don't have one in the wine.
Can't we just drink it instead?
Okay.
That's cranberry.
This is pomegranate juice.
Oh, that's pomegranate, right.
Yeah, okay. Pomegranate berry. Look at that. It's kind of a really pretty little lilac color. Really light.
Very light, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm on one. Okay. Here we go. It's just a light little color. Just a light little lavender there.
Now, you didn't put any vinegar in there, right?
I did.
Oh, you
I
did?
did,
Okay,
yes.
you're supposed to put vinegar in
This one here is the, which one is
That
this
was the
one?
other juice. That was the cram? No. Which one was it? Grape. That was the
forgot.
grease.
Grape
Grape was
juice,
second.
okay.
Grape juice.
And grape
Okay.
doesn't look.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's kind of a
grayish
purpley.
And it's kind of getting speckly. I don't know if it's
Well,
supposed to
you
or
know
not,
what
but it's
I
kinda getting
did, you
speckly.
guys? I put a little bit of salt in there.
Oh, that's fun.
So, you know.
So they're all ready to eat. They're already salted. That's
There
great.
you go,
I like
pre-salted.
that.
Salt does wonderful things on watercolor painting, so we figured we'd try that. This is chamomile tea. It didn't really do
Nothing.
anything.
Not so much.
But if you eat the egg, you'll want to go to sleep.
There you go.
It'll relax you. And then we've got, I don't have an egg in there.
We've got a tea bag
It's
and some
red
water.
zinger tea waiting for its egg.
You know, beet juice was one we used and worked really good. Made a really dark red.
Does it
Yeah.
So
really?
just like a can of beets, eat the beets and pour the juice on the egg. And
Oh, what
Right.
a good idea.
Now in here, we just took these out of the pots, and what I did with these is I just cooked them in the cloth in
Are you
something.
supposed to open those?
Yes, we're going to open them up. They might be a little hot, so if you
Like
guys want to
Christmas.
take one and open it. This one's kind of yellowy, so I'm curious to see. I don't remember what I put in it. And we'll just lay the. Okay.
Now, one of the things we do sometimes is we use a white crayon
This
when
does
the
look
eggs are
like
still hot,
seaweed.
and you can draw pictures on the eggs, and then when you dye
that's
them,
true.
it'll act as a
There we
resist.
go.
See what I did with this, and this is the moss. It is moss that you can get at your craft store.
Does that say?
And yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Can we see that? So we-
Okay, here.
Where do you want me to show this? Here? Okay. So where it, see, it made little patterns on there, which I think
Yeah.
is totally cool.
This
I think it's cool.
is
Ooh,
the
that's
red
really pretty.
onion. Where are we? Here we go. This is the red onion
We're over
skin.
here, actually. We're over here.
Look at that. Red onion skin.
This looks like leaves and grass.
Yes.
Now, this is more leaves and grass.
This one here is kind of cool. It's just a dead leaf and some grass that is finally coming up in my backyard. So, party. And then in the pan over here, we've got red cabbage, and the eggs are wrapped in, what I did with one of them is I took a piece of lace, because I want to see what it looks like. And I wrapped the lace around the egg, and then I put it in fabric, and I put it in there. And I
okay.
wanted to see...
If you get a lace print, or like a
Yes.
reverse print.
Wouldn't that be too cool?
That would be cool.
And the other
We
one,
can
what did I
check
do with
back
the
at
other
the
one?
end of
I
the
don't
show.
remember what I did with the other one, but it'll be fun to find out.
It will be fun.
So, just get creative with your eggs, everybody. This is a great, I know what I did with the other egg. I used a white crayon. Yes. So what you're going to do is we're going to actually take and display them in one of these little cupcake cups. So they're going to be all party. And you can actually take, you know what I think I might do? Oh, and I'll play with this while you guys are going on with the show and everything. These ones that aren't working out so well, I might take those and stick those in. Why don't I take this one here? And I'm going to put this in my red zinger tea. And then this one here, since it's not working all that great either, I'm going to put this in that red wine. And then we will see what we get when we get ready to do the whole thing.
You know, what we like to do is put just a little dab of like olive oil or
to shine it up,
to shine it up so they look really pretty.
That came out so cool. You know what?
That
I'm
is
loving
really-
this.
I
I
like
don't
that.
think I will buy the
Those are
other
the
stuff
onions, right?
anymore.
That's the
Yes,
onion.
that's the red onion. Look at that.
And you put it in the baggie?
What I did is I wrapped the onion around it, and then I wrapped it in the fabric. I'm having so much fun with this. This is like just way too cool. So
And then we're going to make cold slaw, right? Because we have onions and cabbage.
And wine and
yeah,
we're
you know,
good.
we got some
Salt.
spices here. You know, we got some salt. I put the salt underneath the table. You know, it's gonna be a fun time. Well, everybody, this would be a
that's
great
the mud.
project.
I thought that was more grass. I thought that was
Oh,
grass. I thought we were
Easter
gonna
grass,
smoke that.
Easter grass.
Now, next week, what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you guys ahead of time, since next
Cool.
Tuesday is Astara.
That's absolutely true.
What I'm planning on doing, everybody, is we're going to do a
Getting
little-
wild and crazy? Okay.
We're going to do some plants. We're going to actually plant some seeds. We're going to decorate a pot and plant some seeds.
We're decorating
So-
pot? Are we allowed to do that?
Sure.
Colorado.
Oh,
Colorado,
that's true.
yeah.
That's
As
true.
long as you pretend like you're sick, you can.
Okay, I can do that.
I do have asthma and high blood pressure, so Anyway, well,
you know, I'll bet you didn't know this, that in ancient Egyptian times, we're doing the whole Egyptian thing today, that one of the gifts that people would bring to mothers just after they delivered was hard-boiled duck eggs. I know these are chicken, but hard-boiled. And onions, because onions actually are native to Egypt. And then frankincense and myrrh, and the purpose of that was to take the child to the temple and dedicate it to the gods. So this also connects to our speaker tonight, to our guest.
That is so cool.
I know.
Fabulous.
Good job.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to let our eggs boil in here. Later on at the end of the show, I'll have everything unwrapped. We'll put them in the baskets, and we'll show you what we got.
All right. I think that sounds wonderful. All right.
This has been the Krafty Kitchen Witch. Hey, see you later.
Great. Phil's drum making.
Okay, so it looks like the next thing we have up is a video on drum making by Phil. I don't know if I can say his whole name, Catalano. I didn't know if we were supposed to because we're all being secret and underground here. But so Phil Catalano and drum making. So here it is.
Hi, I'm Phil Catalano, and we're going to be making a shaman hoop drum. I've been making hoop drums for more than 20 years, and a variety of sizes, all the way down from like a 10-inch size, all the way up to a 22-inch size, which is the largest hoop that they make. We're going to start off by using elk hide. This is going to be a 13-inch, and first of all, I get a large elk hide and cut them to the size of the ring plus the sides of the ring. And so what we'll have is a hide that will come over the top of the second, top part of the ring. And this will be the drum when we're finished. There's a variety of things we do. I take the hide after I cut this template, if you will, from a template. I soak it in water, and I also have the lacing soaking in the water so that the lacing will be laced around here, and we'll show that as we go along. This elk hide is has a variety of thicknesses, and it's thick and thin in different areas. This is a natural hide in that it was, I buy my hides from a Native American tribe up in Michigan, and they handy hair and handy flesh. And they tell me that they do this in sacred ceremony. It's a family-owned business. They've been doing it for 100 years plus in their Native American traditions. And so I buy their hides. They're a bit more expensive because they're not commercial hides. They're not bleached. They're not the tandy version, tandy leather version, which you can also buy from them. These are Native American hides that are prepared at least at that level. And I also have some lacing that's cut from the hides, and I usually take the scraps that's left over from where I'm cutting, and I cut around the lacing pieces until I have a lacing hide like this. And we'll be using that in a little bit. All right, the first step in making the drum is to start punching the holes along the edge, and there's a variety of things we can use. We can use a hole punch that's on a wheel, and this tool is held by the hand and squeezed, and it's sometimes, depending on the thickness of the hide, very difficult to keep going around and spending the time working your hand. So another method is a hole punch, and that is this with a hide hammer. This is for so that you don't use a metal hammer on this tool, which will smash and flatten the top and kind of ruin it after a few uses. So the first step, like I said, was going to be making holes. I'm going to be making these holes about 1/4 of an inch or maybe like 3/8 of an inch from the edge, and the hole is about a 1/4 inch hole, and I start off here and make the first hole, and then about inch and a half I'll make the second hole, again a 1/4 inch from the edge, and then we'll go around until we cover the entire circumference. Okay, I wanted to make a point here that when we cut these holes or punch these holes, that we do so on a piece of plastic and a wood, and this way when we punch the holes we have something solid to work through and it goes faster. Now that I've got these holes made, I keep this wet so that we could continue to stretch it when we need to. We don't want it to dry out at all, so we keep this relatively wet both sides. That's why I work on a tarp so that we don't get water all over everything. And I also bring towels, and the towels also help keep the water from getting anywhere that you don't want it. Okay, so now that we're finished with that part, we're going to put the ring in and assure that we do have all the dimensions we need to work with. Okay, and now we're going to start lacing. The lacing is one of the time-consuming tasks. I start off by putting a knot about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches from the end, because I'm going to use this part for tying off the final. And we'll start lacing with this end. I tied a knot when I was working with them to measure it and make sure I had the right length. Now, to measure the length and how much I need, I typically take this and find out it goes around the hoop 3 times. When I know it goes around the hoop 3 times at least, I have a lot left over, and that'll be used for the lacing in the back later. So it's going to be a minimum of 3 times around the hoop to know that you've got the right length of lacing. Now, pick a spot, and from the inside, you determine what's going to be the outside of the drum and where the rough side is going to be the inside. Now, some people, depending on the hide, and they're all very different, some people like this on the outside because it's very characteristic, has some very nice designs. In this case, we have some lace, some of the hide is rough inside, so we're not going to put that on the outside. We're going to make one typically this way. This is the most common method of using the smooth side on the drum side, the drum head, if you will. Okay, now this will not go through those holes. Well, this one did, so what we're going to do, we're going to make the knot bigger. And you want to make sure it doesn't pull through, because we're going to be pulling tight on this drum head when it comes time to stretching it across the hoop. And there we go. All right, so now we'll start off again. And from the inside, we'll pull the lacing through. And here we have an important part of this that I want to show how this is going to work. The next piece of this lacing will go through the, it's called a stitch switch. We're going to go through the rough side every time so that we'll lace around it and we'll have this type of lacing. Continue that all the way around. And again, like I said, this is time-consuming part of it. We want to do very little scrunching up of this. When I mean scrunching, pulling it too tight, because when you get around and it gets too tight, you won't be able to get your hoop in here to work, and I'll show you that part as we go along. But you don't want to leave it too loose, because if we do, we'll have to go around and tighten it up a little bit either, which we'll do also when we put the hoop inside. So now I'm going to continue lacing this method. This is I've taken 2 classes and learned with 2 different teachers to make drums. And the reason I did that is because the first time we made a drum, we didn't lace it like I'm showing here. What we did was just laced it inside the drum and started pulling on each of the holes across to the other side. And what happened to my drum was it ripped through the holes. When it dried and started to shrink down, it started to pull those holes. And so when I found another teacher who made it with a different tradition method, like the one I'm showing, he shows here how we pull on these laces instead of the holes. And I'll show that part when we get to there. But that method prevents the holes from stretching and ripping out. And I also have made a number of repairs to drums for people who have had the other method where their holes had torn through, and I've repaired them. Again, one of the things we do is make sure we keep this wet. Okay, and I'm going to continue lacing and just keep lacing and lacing till I go all the way around.
Okay. So that was part 1 of drum making.
Yeah, of 3.
announcer voice.
And so part 2 is next week, and then part 3 we're going to finish up actually when Phil is going to be co-hosting, so he'll be able to answer any questions. And under guest resources, if you want to take his drum making workshop, we have information, or we will shortly, as soon as I do it, more information on the website under About the Show, and then under Phil, and then, yeah, you'll find it. Okay, so that is really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut to commercial, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to do a really, really funny segment that you taped for us.
I don't know if it's all that funny. We'll see. We'll be doing swords,
it's gonna be good.
Okay.
It's going to be good.
Well, we'll watch it and see. We'll take it votes.
All right.
People can
absolutely.
tell me whether to give
vote.
it up or not.
So we're going to go to commercial, and then we'll be right back.
Okay.
Chasing twisters down avenue.
You're watching Modern Pagan TV. If you'd be interested in advertising on our program or becoming a sponsor, please email info@modernpagan.tv. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Same communication to hear unspoken love. You can't break my heart.
They're destroying our town. They're burning our property. We're not going to take it anymore.
People have believed in witchcraft for centuries, and in the Stuart era, we just loved accusing innocent people of being witches. Have you had an accident that wasn't your fault? Trip or fall at work? Suffered a personal injury or sickness? Then you could have been cursed by a witch. So get in touch with us at Witchfinders Direct. We'll find some innocent woman, say she's a witch, and have her burned to death. Farmer Pocket of Crawley lost all his cabbages when they were eaten by slugs. He lost literally several shillings. So he called in witchfinders. And we decided the slugs had been sent by the strange old woman who lived in the village. Yes, her.
It wasn't me.
Yes, it was. She's old and warty and looks a bit evil, don't you think? So we had her dragged away and given a fair trial. Do you have a cat?
Yeah.
Then thou art a witch. She was put to death, and her cat sent to prison. So if you have anything go wrong in your life, call Witchfinders direct. We'll find some innocent old woman and blame her for it. Witchfinders, because old ladies deserve it.
In the 1600s, confessing to being a witch could result in burning. Not confessing to being a witch could result in being tortured until you said you were a witch, then in burning. Not all witches were burned. Other punishments included forced fasting, exile, hanging, beheading, stoning, and gouging.
I believe all people should be able to read Scripture in their mother tongue.
Burned at the stake for translating the Bible into English.
In the discussion of natural problems, we ought to begin not with the Scriptures, but with experiments and demonstrations.
Tried by the Inquisition for insisting that facts, not dogma, should drive our beliefs about nature.
No woman can call herself free until she can choose whether she will or will not be a mother.
Repeatedly jailed for promoting contraception.
I was marching for fair elections, but I was silenced before I had a chance to speak.
Shot dead in the streets of Tehran while protesting Iran's fraudulent election. Throughout history, prevailing belief systems have tried to protect themselves against new ideas, calling them offensive and dangerous. Today, we hear claims that certain beliefs are sacred and should be immune from challenge. But without the free exchange of ideas, including responsible criticism, progress is impossible. Support the campaign for free expression.
I'm chasing twisters down an alley.
If you like what you see here, please donate to modernpagan.tv. Just go to our website, www.modernpagan.tv, and look for the donate button. We appreciate your contributions to keep modernpagan.tv on the air and on the internet. And now, back to live modernpagan.tv.
We're back on. Okay, commercials. How exciting is that?
I love it.
Okay.
Well, we love commercials. We love commercials.
We do. We love them. And actually, we'd like to have some commercials, your commercials. So just remember, we're all about, if you have some product to sell that you think our audience would like, we're ready for you.
And not only that, but when you're a guest on the show, you can post your segment on your webpage.
That's exciting.
And you can link to us, and we link back to you, and go skipping merrily down the daisy paths and stuff like that. Yeah.
And the other thing is if you like the show, or even if you only moderately like it, put links to it on your Facebook page. I know, we're wonderful. Yeah. Put links on your Facebook page. Get the word out, because we're going to be able to see the whole shows now. It looks like they're going to be able to be put on YouTube in entirety. That is so cool. So there's no more watching like the first 10 minutes and then jumping over to watch part 12 of whatever. So post it to any websites you have that are pagan-oriented and would like to be able to... We got some good information. We got some funny stuff. Some of the stuff that's funny is not really meant to be, but, it happens.
Some of it.
Just turns out that way.
Just turns out that way. Speaking of funny, we have your segment.
Yep, we'll see. We'll see afterwards. We can see. We'll take a little poll. Okay, so Tool Time with swords. Okay.
Slashy.
Yeah. Hi. Swords are often considered weapons of war, and therefore are very often disapproved of in the more fluff bunny community. You could say they have a bad rap. Bad rap. Jorja the lady and word to the Lord. You better stand back, 'cause I got a magic sword. I got a magic sword, I know how to use it. You didn't choose it, you can't refuse it. You're gonna lose it, yeah. Nah. Swords have been part of the arsenal of mankind since the middle of the Bronze Age, about 3,000 to 3,500 years ago. The nature of bronze made it so that long weapons became somewhat fragile, required special techniques to keep them from either bending or breaking during combat. Early swords seem to have been thrusting weapons, with the hacking versions coming much later. For example, this is an example, a modern replica, of an Egyptian khopesh. The name means dog's leg, and I think you can take a look at it and see why they called it that. You can see the resemblance. Swords were usually items relegated to the richer class of warriors in the early years, with axes and clubs and spears being far easier to mass produce for the common soldiers. The knightly class of feudal Europe was symbolized by the sword, which was used to complete their knighting ceremonies. In fact, there were laws passed that only those of rank of knight or higher could own a sword. Thus it is said in the law, which is a document used to giving advice to witches, to have no sword unless your rank allows you one. Clergy of the Middle Ages took the admonition from the Bible that those who live by the sword shall surely perish by the sword in a very literal fashion. They would often use maces or clubs in combat, thinking that it might give them some sort of magical protection from sword blows. Swords permeate mythology. The creation of a sword requires fire blown to red hot by air. It requires ore from the earth, and it requires quenching in water. The forging of the sword with repeated blows and heating and quenching is analogous to the use of will and determination to get something valuable from hard work. Very often can be seen as a magical spell sort of thing, of constantly reforging everything. Smiths were often seen as magical for their ability to craft such things from chunks of rock. One of the most famous swords in myth and legend was Excalibur, given to King Arthur by the Lady of the Lake. Now this was not the sword that he pulled from the stone. That sword supposedly belonged to his father and was called Clarent, and it is said it was the same sword that was wielded by Mordred to slay his own father. The first katana was said to be forged by the Japanese sun goddess Amaterasu Omakami and represented the weapon of a true samurai. Modern myths have their swords too. For example, the fabled Narsil of Lord of the Rings glory, and the truly powerful saber wielded in a series of little-known movies. Try putting up a circle with this baby, eh? Now, as a magical tool, some say that the sword is just a larger vibration of the Athame and is often used for casting big circles where one wants to look very impressive. There's nothing like a man in a kilt cutting the circle with a 5-foot claymore to make you think, what the heck is he overcompensating for? It is likewise the tool of the East and air and is one of the 4 minor arcana of the tarot deck. Now, certain old magical writings say that a sword can be used to subdue and punish rebellious and darksome spirits and demons. With this in your hand, you are the ruler of the magic circle. Well, if you don't really run into a lot of rebellious spirits and darksome demons, you may not even find you need a magical sword. As it stands, I often use my sword to direct certain energies and as a warding tool, to be honest, and just because it looks really cool. And as Granny Weatherwax would say, that sometimes it's cool to have things that just look cool and make people think you're magic. That's what makes magic powerful. Now, as to what kind of sword is proper for you, well, it should be something you're drawn to, I think. Remember, it should fit into the mythology you're working with. It could be a bit jarring to call in Celtic deities using a Japanese katana or a Chinese Tai Chi sword. Also remember that you have to be able to move it around with comfort, and something that's really too heavy is not going to be comfortable for too long when you have to whip it around. Now, I also advise not having really sharp swords at public rituals. I've seen too many careless officiants and equally brainless ritual attendees for that to happen. And one of Drake's rules for life is never do anything in ritual that you might have to explain to an EMT or a police officer later. Okay, I'm just going to show you a few of the swords that I use for various things. Now, this is a sword that was given to me as a gift. My own magical sword is a katana, and I chose not to bring it today just because I had 35 pounds of swords. This is one that was given to me as a gift, and it is really probably the most ludicrous katana that I own. It's got a really sharp blade. I can cut through a pumpkin with one hand and one slice with this, but this little Highlander sort of snake thing on the end would get really caught up in things, and it really unbalances the sword. I find that the katana, for me, is a really good meditation tool. I very often will just go out and face the different elements and move around and just pull the energy of each one of the elements in through the sword. This was my first magical sword that we used for our original coven. It's actually not sharp at all. I mean, it's just a piece of steel. You could probably still kill somebody if you hit them hard enough, but as one of my old friends used to say, you can kill somebody with a toothpick if you're persistent enough. This sword is a leaf blade sword. It was very popular amongst the Celts and also amongst the Greeks. It would make a really good magical sword because it's extremely light. As you can see, it's real easy to hold. It's not that much. It's kind of just a long dagger in its own way, but it's a really effective blade, and it's short enough that you can use it indoors without taking out lights, which is something that I actually have done multiple times. This is my ghost hunting sword. This was sent to me by my spirit brother Tony from the desert. I don't know why somebody in the desert chose to make a sandalwood Japanese style sword, but he found it in a shop and thought it was just weird enough that I might like it. This one has gone several times with me to various places when I didn't really feel like hauling in a huge over-the-shoulder sword, but thought I might actually need one to create some wards and stuff. It's really easy to tuck inside of a shirt or put somewhere, and it's got some sort of weird rune things on it we think might be some sort of Sanskrit writing or something, but like I said, I haven't found that it does anything except what energy that I put into it. One of the more interesting swords I have here, this one actually is called a bastard sword, and that word is not probably what you mean. The old English version of what a bastard was, it actually came from a French word, meant something that could be used for more than one purpose, and this is also known as a hand and a half sword. This sword is light enough that it can be used one-handed. You can see it's pretty easy to move around without breaking the lights, or if you really want to get some power into it, it has enough of a handle that you can whip it in with two hands. Now, the funny story about this, that I play a lot of role-playing games, and we once had a guy who joined one of our games, and he basically was constantly running around saying that he was a halfling carrying a bastard sword. And I've got to tell you, people, that's one of my pet peeves. There is the W's in there, but it's silent. It's like the T on the end of Tarot. It isn't pronounceable, okay? This is a sword, not a sword. So he would always say he was going to sneak up behind people with his bastard sword. Well, one day I got really frustrated, and I said, you realize you're a halfling. You're this tall, and a bastard sword is 4.5 feet tall. And he said, no, it isn't. So I began to pull open the books to show him the rules. And he said, a bastard sword is what guys use. And I said, what do you mean? He said, a bastard sword is for guys and a broadsword is for girls. And we all had a good laugh till we realized that he wasn't actually kidding. So that's swords for this time around. Next time that I'm on, we're going to be looking at wands. So we'll see you next time. Bastard means anything that can be used in more than one fashion. They used to have bastard saddles that were, you could either ride like with their legs on either side astride, or you could ride side saddle, and they were called bastard saddles. And that was it's one of those things. It's just one of those weird words. It means something that can be used two ways.
I've often thought that if the world ran correctly, men would sit in a side saddle. Just think
it would
about
make
that.
a lot more sense in the long run.
It would hurt.
Or at least those little cavalry saddles, like the U.S. cavalry, have a little hole in the middle.
I know. Yeah.
So what's next, my dear?
No, it's true. Well, we have our guest.
We have our guest. You sit right here. I'm going to pretend like here she is, magically appearing.
Jorja is one of my favorite people, and she consented to come back again because she didn't have enough of us last time. We didn't have enough of her, so she came back again. We're going to talk Kemetics.
We're doing Kemetic stuff.
We are.
But the next time we're going to be talking about the adult stuff.
I know, sex.
Yeah.
That's one of my weeks, right?
It is.
Oh, good.
Yeah. We scheduled it specifically so you could.
Okay.
You could be there.
You know, you're enthusiastic now, but you will be embarrassed later.
I have to tell you, everybody who knows me knows that I was actually born without a shame gland. It's a terrible thing. It was like 1 in 10,000 people who were born with no shame gland.
You've been inspected well enough to know that?
That sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. We're giving her a challenge, though.
So Kemetic sounds kind of like Dianetics. You're not going to like sell us a bunch of books and then.
I'm not going to sell you books, or not going to sell you.
But you have some websites we could look at.
I do have some websites.
Cool.
I have some websites. That's my website. That's up now.
Okay.
It's got a generic picture.
Yeah.
So does the camel.
Because that's a super generic image. I made it like the hour before I came on the show.
Okay. Cool. That works.
What's the URL of your website?
Yeah.
It's houseofthesacredscarab.org.
Okay, and no spaces, just all. House of the Secret Scarab.
.org. That's
Org.
All one word.
All right.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Good. Yay.
Yeah.
So I have a new group that I just started. There's my Facebook page, which is Facebook House of the Sacred Scarab. Again.
All right.
I used scarabs because, a lot of people think that ankhs are the things that people wear now. You see people wearing ankhs all the time. Live people didn't really wear ankhs in ancient Egypt. It really just didn't happen. It was something that you gave to somebody because it was the idea of eternal life. So you'll often see deities like handing each other or walking around with them, but they didn't wear them as amulets. And I really wanted to reflect that we are very much the spirit of the ancients and the way they would have done it.
Well, the scarab went over the heart.
It went over the heart, but they also have different kind of amulets. I have a big collar that I didn't wear today because the collar of the shirt
we didn't wear
clashed.
ours either. We just.
But mine is
Next
huge,
show.
and it has like 15 scarabs on it with different
cool.
things, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is cool.
And I got it on eBay for like $20, so.
Woohoo, yay, eBay.
Yeah.
What did us magical types do before eBay? We had to actually go and make stuff and everything. Ooh.
Fine.
Yeah.
So Jorja, you, at least if I were just going to look at your DNA, you don't look Egyptian to me.
Not at all. Of course, that's
in this
kind
life.
It's kind of tricky because we don't really know what the ancient Egyptians look like. The people that live in Egypt today are not genetically related to the people that lived in Egypt.
And some of them had red hair. I
Yeah,
remember
some
that.
of them had red hair.
And guys
Some
wore
of them had-
mustaches and things like that.
Some of them had kind of blonde hair.
Well, that's reddish blonde.
Yeah,
that
kind of
makes
strawberry
sense.
blonde hair. So we don't really know what they looked like other than very stylized pictures.
They were very flat, I remember.
They were very flat.
Yeah.
They did a lot of this. But yeah, we don't really know what they look like. Everybody that's in Egypt today is descended from after the Turkish invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not at all.
Well, Egypt kind of was like one of those little tromping grounds. I mean, there was tons of invasions, waves of people coming down, Hyksos and all sorts of people, the Hittites and everybody. So it's like there was just, it was kind of like, next, who's going to invade? And the Greeks came through and, intermingled with them.
And then the Romans.
Yeah.
Egypt back then was kind of what we think of India today. We think of like India as this cool, awesome, mystic place, and that's where you
Who
go.
does?
Lots of people. Everybody I know thinks that, hey, I didn't say I did. They got a temple of rats that just rats do whatever they
I watched Slumdog Millionaire. I don't think you could pay me to go to India after that. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I heard that
without very strong antibiotics.
1/4 of Indians don't have toilets, so I'm not going to India anytime soon. But people really think of India nowadays. I saw that face cover. People nowadays think of India as like this hugely mystical place where you can go to receive enlightenment. And in ancient times, that place was Egypt, and that's why everybody wanted to invade.
Yep.
They're like, you have a steady food supply.
Well, it's also rich, and so they wanted a piece of that action
You
too.
got a steady food supply, and this is a place where everything happens. Plus, it's really close to where the East and the West at the time met, and so everything came through. They've actually found marijuana in
I know
Egyptian
that.
tombs.
Actually, and tobacco, and that is very difficult to explain because tobacco is totally believed to be a New World plant.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about some of those little crossovers, whether there was some ship travel back and forth between South America, plus the fact it's like when you look at South American pyramids, start to think that maybe somebody somewhere saw those and goes, we got to get us some of them.
Yeah, we should get some of those. Those are nice. I'm like,
We can put them over there and arrange it.
Okay.
So I have a question for you, because I have the same sort of problem. I basically practice Celtic, and it's kind of agrarian. We talk about the planting times and the times when the sheep come. And since I don't actually own sheep and I have yet to have a good garden, we have to kind of say, okay, we're going to take some of these things and turn them into something else. Okay, now you're doing a religion that is exactly the opposite seasons. It's from the southern half of the hemisphere, and you don't have a big river that floods and everything. How do you kind of collate the celebrations of the Egyptian calendar into a modern lifestyle in a North American way?
I've kind of been working on a calendar, and it's really hard because the calendar was based off lunar and solar cycles and secular and religious festivals. So I've kind of been fitting everything together. The start of the new year was the rising of Sothis, Sothis, I'm sorry, the star. And so when
The
you
dog
can...
star before
and
the...
Ceres.
Yes,
Is
Ceres before the sun.
Exactly. So you have to actually go like on the military website because they have it all calculated out, and then you have to put in like where Denver is, the rising time of the sun, and the rising time of Sirius, and you have to do all these little things, and then that'll give you the date of when the new year would start, and then you get to translate 360 days in our calendar, 365 days in our calendar, to 365 days in their calendar, which was made up of 10 months of 30 days,
Right.
and one of 5 days. So that was a lot of fun. I spent about a week working on that.
I'll bet.
And then I found festivals that were religiously significant, but also would have significance to people in America.
Like what?
Well, there is the Lamentation of Isis, Aset is her
Right.
Egyptian name,
Yeah.
which just happens to be October 29th this year.
Seriously?
I promise you.
Okay.
It just because now, even 5 years ago, it was about 2 weeks earlier.
Right.
So it will change. But some things people die every time of the year. We think of Samhain as being like, that's the time that you celebrate death in the modern pagan context. But why? People die even in the spring.
Yeah.
In fact, part of Imbolc is the culling of the herd to make sure they can get through the last little bit of winter so that you have somebody to survive till spring. So part of it is you just got to do it. You just got to suck it up.
So, Georgia, you were telling me that you actually get up every morning and go through the ancient ritual of washing, adorning, and feeding the gods.
I do. But please note that I do this in a shortened version. The original version had 39 steps.
Right.
At least the one for Amun in the Temple of Karnak. We have probably 27 of those steps in a readable form. If I got to be a full-time priestess because somebody just paid me to do that, I could do that. I don't have 2 hours in the morning to prep, wash myself, get all my offerings together, and then go do it. I have about 20 minutes.
Okay. All right.
You take a shower, you're already taking a shower in the morning, so that's
Sure.
not any additional stuff.
Right.
I actually have my natron in the bathroom, because I make my own natron. It's cheaper that way. Take it, use it while I'm rinsing off, brush my teeth, brush my hair. I have all my offerings pre-prepped. Usually for just a regular day, I'll just use water and incense. About every 10 days or so, again, there are weeks where 10 days, I will do bread or fruit, sometimes beer. For bigger festivals,
Bread and beer.
Bread and beer. Now, the hard part is, in ancient Egypt, they then ate the offerings.
Sure.
And God love my husband, Tony. Goddess love him. That's a one mock argument we ever have in the house. Because when you're Celtic, when you give an offering, you break it. You break it, and that kills it in this world, and it sends it on to the land of the gods. You cannot give the ancient Egyptian deities your broken chip.
I think that's when, I've worked with Egyptian deities off and on. That's the thing I've always found, that I always felt like I wasn't anal retentive enough to be a good Egyptian, because they get really pissed off if you don't follow all the steps, and I don't really like having Egyptian gods pissed off at me, so I just decided I'm going to move over here and stick with the Celts who are like, yeah, that looks good.
I think that it's not so much the deities that are getting pissed off if you don't follow all the steps. It's the hardcore Reconstructionists, Kemetic orthodoxy, that will
We
pitch a
heard
fit.
that anyway. It didn't make any difference.
That will pitch a fit. They're very much into, what do you mean you worship Anubis? Don't you mean Anpu? It's like, here's the deal. They don't really know how anything was pronounced either, because they
no
didn't
vowels and
have the
hieroglyphs.
vowels.
Yeah, no vowels and hieroglyphs.
And there weren't spaces. That's what makes translating stuff
Well, and
really hard.
I think that's the difficulty in any Reconstructionist. It's like, I would not want to live my life as a true Celt. I don't feel like gathering up animals and building a wicker man every fall and burning a bunch of animals alive. We're worshiping the old gods in new ways.
Exactly.
And when I've dealt with the Egyptian deities, I had to say, listen, I know you've got these really wonderful rituals, but I don't know them. I mean, I come from a new world, and I will honor you, but I will have to do it in a way that's acceptable to me. And, I've worked with several of them, and several of them have just grabbed me by the, Anubis is one of them, because I work with a lot of the underworld gods regularly, and they kind of loan me out to Anubis occasionally who needs something done, and, and he's cool. He's still a little bitter about the whole losing his job to Osiris and, thing, but, it happens.
He didn't lose his job. It was just a little transfer.
Yeah, it was kind of a downward.
I gotta say, one thing to love about the modern world, 2 words, my friend, toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't
Antibiotics, all those things, wonderful stuff, yeah.
Actually, the Egyptians had antibiotics, had
They
tetracycline.
They did wonderful things. Yeah, I mean,
They
and so
found
much
it
of
in
it was
beer, and
lost.
they kept that going. They realized that, because it was a wild use thing, and they kept that culture of beer going for quite some time. Eventually it died out, but we've actually found tetracycline and
you know what else is
atropine too.
They would wash their mouths with myrrh.
Yeah, well,
myrrh is a
smart
mild,
idea. Smart idea.
It's a very mild dose of antibiotics.
Yeah.
So I have to say, when you're
Not stupid.
eating food that's just mostly sand, you get bad teeth real quick.
Oh well, the way they would put sand in to help grind wheat so that it ground more fine.
Oh, we're supposed to say hello to viewers in France. So
France,
we're all the way around the world. What time is it?
Ooh, what time is it? Quick.
In France,
it's got to be like, bonjour.
Bonjour. My son's taking French right now, so I'm learning all this.
Comment allez-vous?
Oh, Tish, you spoke French. So, afterlife, how do you feel? What is your personal belief? You're worshiping the Egyptian gods. How do you feel about the afterlife?
I personally am a big believer in the field of reeds. There's 2 real ways to go with the Egyptian pantheon.
Okay.
There's the field of reeds, which is you slog through the underworld to get there, and then it's kind of like a way better version of now. You live in a house, you have some stuff, you get some...
Elysian Fields.
You get some Ushaptis, so that if
I
you...
made a Greek reference. That's I know.
Summerland.
Yeah.
It's like now, only better. You get some little Ushaptis. I told Tony, I said, if I die suddenly, if I get run over by a bus, I want to go to the dollar store, buy me all the cheapest Barbies you can find, and write "Servant of Georgia" on them. I'm like, that's good enough.
I like it.
Oh, man. I can just imagine a whole house being served by Barbies. I would like to help you, mistress, but I can't bend my arms.
Actually, the most common thing that you see on a Ushapti is, I will move sand from one end of the Nile to the other for so-and-so.
Oh, cool.
That's call on me to do that.
Maybe a couple G.I. Joes, too, just to be cool.
Yeah.
You want to be, because you need some bulky guys
Yeah.
who actually have, hands that can grip. Yeah, well, Kens are bad. Kens have no leg joints and no arm joints. You want somebody with movable...
no other things.
Yeah, movable parts. That's important for an Upshati.
You can get like a Raggedy Andy, that can work.
Well, what about reincarnation? Is there a belief system in the Egyptians about being able to come back to this world, or...?
Not in reincarnation. With the Egyptian pantheon, and it's hard to say, because you can't just say in Egypt, because we're talking about thousands of years.
Yeah, and there's lots of changes.
Huge amount of space.
And a big change between the old, the middle, and the new kingdom.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And
Huge
even as you get, you hit the Hellenistic period, and it's still an idea of Egypt, only with the gloss of a lot of Greek ideas and a lot of Roman ideas. So it just gets longer and longer.
Imhotep, Asclepius.
Yep. It's like, we'll just give them all these Greek names and cover it up. Called Typhon and Set. They both are troublemakers.
You see a lot of times Isis and Demeter, and it's like, wow, that
one doesn't really work for me.
Demeter lost Persephone and Isis.
It doesn't work for me.
It's not really doing me either. But
it's not doing me.
Well, so how do you? I've dealt a lot with certain deities, and in fact, in a ritual a while back, I was called to play Set in the Rising of the Nile ritual, and I had a little bit of difficulty because Set is looked at as the bad guy. But then I started doing a lot of research and a lot of meditation, and realizing that he was kind of cast in that role. He originally used to be the governor of the southern part of Egypt, and the pharaoh there would have Set as his.
Wasn't evil.
He was just.
There's so many misconceptions.
Well, and it was, but you saw what happened when the Hyksos invasion. They had a god called Heru, who was a hawk-headed god that looked a lot like Horus. So when they came in, within 10 years, you suddenly had this thing that Osiris and Set are fighting now. And then 10 years later, oh my gosh, Set killed Osiris. So now all the temples of Set are burned down. Osiris is dead. He can't answer prayers. Isis is totally wiped out and walks away. Nephthys locks herself in a tower. Who's going to rule us? Horus! Horus can take over, and now we just have our god put on the throne. And it's like, I wanted to get a bumper sticker that said Set was framed by the Hyksos, just kind of...
Well, here's the deal. In the Middle Kingdom, when you start getting into the Middle Kingdom, is where you start really getting the idea of Set was the murderer of his brother. But at that time, in the early Middle Kingdom, that's when you see, yeah, he murdered his brother, but it was kind of a good thing, because there's actually a quote in the Book of Coming Forth by Day, Book of the Dead, that's basically Osiris is probably where they get it in the Bible, is he says, "Oh, Ra, like, what'd you put me here for? This place it sucks. There's no light. There's no food. There's no nothing. Why'd you do this? This is pretty messed up. Why didn't you just let me get eaten by a pet?" And he's like, "No, it's your job. It's your job to make this someplace for people to go." So you see, like, Set is kind of this guy that makes this whole happen. Later on, he becomes like this huge villain. But you have to remember, in the Old Kingdom, as the bark of the day goes through the worst hours of the night, just the worst hours, even Ra trembles in fear at the sight of these things. And who defends him? Set. So you can say, "Oh, he's a bad guy," but that's not really fair. It's more fair to say he's a bad guy.
Isis was down there, vanquishing Apophis with her magic.
She was.
Since she knew the true name of Ra, she rocked.
She did rock. But you can't really say that Set is just a bad guy.
Yeah,
because he did defend.
Well, but the thing is, he also was tied in with storms and stuff like that. And I think when the Greeks came along, by tying him in with Typhon, who was Lord of Storms and stuff, he got a lot more of the kind of evil chaos kind of thing. But the more I spoke with him, it was on an astral sort of thing. It was like kind of got a bad rap. And if you go far enough back past the scary Set, there's a guy who's a little wild, a little rambunctious, maybe I always got the feeling that Osiris was the son who did everything the right way, and Set was kind of the rebel. He didn't wait to be born. He cut his way out of his mom's stomach, stuff like that. It's like,
he was assertive.
Yeah.
He knew what he wanted, and he went and got it. And even when you see the contendings of Set and Horus, again, you see a guy who knows what he wants and does everything in his power to get it. Yeah, that guy sometimes is a jerk. On the other hand, if you're going to war, do you want the guy who's hiding, or do you want the guy who knows what he wants and goes and gets it?
Very true. What's another little-known Egyptian deity that you interact with? Is there somebody out there that...
One of my favorites is, and this is so funny because I don't have kids and I don't really want kids, is Tarouet.
Yeah.
She is basically, if you can imagine, a hippopotamus standing up.
My favorite, too.
That's Tarouet. She's actually, they have little stuffed ones that you can get at the New York Museum of Art. Yeah. And Lars brought me one. So I have this little stuffed Tarouet. Probably one of the worst known deities is Bastet. Because people have this whole idea that she's like a fluffy...
Not me. Not me.
Animal. Yeah,
not me.
Animal. And it's like, you have to realize that people think that Bastet is the calm version of Sekhmet, and that's not really fair.
I never saw them as the same goddess at all.
The calm version of Sekhmet is actually Hathor. There is a story where the people have really pissed off Ra, and they're plotting to overthrow him, and he's really mad about this, and he sends forth his daughter. Now, in some versions of this myth, the daughter that he sends forth is Hathor. She sees what happens. She becomes so enraged that she becomes Sekhmet. So she goes and she just smites all the people, and the valley fills with their blood, and she drinks it. And she's like, "That's pretty awesome," and she goes to bed. And she wakes up the next morning and she sees more people. She's like, "Oh, I'm still really mad at these people." And she wakes up and she slaughters them all, and the valley fills with blood. She's like, "That's pretty awesome," and she drinks it, and she goes to bed. Now, the gods are getting kind of freaked out, because they're like, "Dude, we need some people." So, maybe you ought to, do something about this. And they try. They're like, "Oh, Sekhmet, please don't kill people." And she's like, "No, I'm killing all these people. I'm thirsty for their blood." So one night, she goes to bed, and they fill the valley with beer, and they throw red dye in there. And she wakes up in the morning, she's like, "Sweet, more blood." And she drinks it all, and she gets massively drunk, and she gets hungover. And she limps home, and she comes home, and she's, again, Hathor. Very calm and sensual. And I kind of have wondered, the Egyptians had some weird stuff around menstruating, and I think it's because they saw menstruation as very powerful. A little icky probably, because they didn't have any sanitary stuff, but very powerful as well. And I think that this myth demonstrates the power of that menstruating cycle and just how wild and untamed that can be. Mm-hmm. And then Hathor the calm after the storm. But Bastet is more like Sekhmet than Hathor.
Well, she was a protector. I mean, protector of children, protector of mothers. I never have seen her as just being the sex kitten kind of thing that she's very often played in modern mythology. But it's the same way with Dionysus being the drunken oaf. That's not who he really was when you go back far enough. And I think, we have the downside of I always say when you go to a god's astral temple, you have to go through the gift shop on the outside that has the modern crap before you get to the part where the deep heart, where the true center of that god or goddess is. And, so much of this stuff, like I said, when you go in and see Bastet with her, with her weaponry preparing to defend the sun, she's a very different thing. Yeah, she was sensual. That's one of the reasons, I have multiple Bastet statues around the house. I adore the concept of her being sensual and loving as well as being very protective. But
I always thought of Bastet as more like, if you were going to mess with a bear, would you want to mess with just a bear or a bear with a cub? You would rather mess with just a bear. And Bastet is the same thing. You always see her with like a basket of kittens or kitten at her feet, because it's like, really, you don't want to mess with a mama. You don't want to mess with mommy, you will get hurt. And I think it's a very similar kind of thing. If Sekhmet is like the raw, just power that a woman has during her cycle, then Bastet is the raw power that a mother has to, take out a robber or lift a car off a trapped child. It's not something that you just lightly say, haha, I'm going to poke you in the head because it's fun. It's not
do
something
that
like
and
that.
die.
Yeah, do that and you're going to be really, really sad.
Yeah.
And the rest of us are going to laugh at you.
Yeah. Told you so! Don't mess with mom.
That's right, don't mess with mom.
Don't mess with mom. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So are you doing any kind of public stuff? I saw you've got a group here, so you're going to be doing public
Right
rituals
now,
or
I'm
any sort of things like
going to start doing
that?
public ritual in August. The opening,
Where's
opening
that?
of the year. I haven't found a location yet.
Okay.
Chances are it's probably going to be at D-Fest.
Oh, absolutely awesome.
It's probably going to be at D-Fest. I'm not aiming to do like
You
one
should
of their
start
big
weaving
public...
linen to make robes.
You don't need to weave your own linen. I'm actually pretty cool at that. I'm actually more of the set that it's better that you come and be clean. Come in clean clothes. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
But if you come and you're clean and you're, don't do anything outrageous, you're more than welcome.
Okay.
Don't offer bad food or Indian incense. Incense that comes from India often contains a small amount of cow dung, which is sacred in India, but not so much in Egypt.
No, we were talking about kaifi. You said
Yes.
you make your own kaifi. Why don't you, for those who don't know kaifi and how to make it?
Kaifi is an Egyptian temple incense, and it has about 1 billion ingredients in it. It's
That's
got
true.
woods, it's got resins, it's got honey, it's got raisins. And it always calls for old raisins, and I don't really get the difference, but I always use old raisins. I have a box of raisins, and I'm like, don't eat those raisins.
I always thought when raisins got to a certain point, that was just it. They just were raisins for the rest of time.
They are. They're
I've
just
seen a
raisins.
raisin go bad.
But they get really, really hard. It's like trying to eat a tiny little rock. And then...
Especially in Colorado.
Yeah, especially in Colorado.
And that would have been true in Egypt.
Yes.
Yeah. It would have been true.
But it's Egyptian temple incense, and they had a lot of different incenses. A lot of times when you hear somebody gives an offering of the Eye of Horus, a lot of times it's not actually an eye, because that would be gross. Yeah, it's like an incense disc that they have called Horus or Eye of Horus.
They probably painted.
And I'm actually, when I made my kaifi, I made my part, because it says call so many parts of this and so many parts of that. So my part is going to be 1 ounce. Well, and then I realized it called for 9 parts of cedar wood. So I had a lot of kaifi. So what I did is
Still have those old raisins in that kaifi.
I do have those old raisins in that kaifi, but I took a lot of that kaifi and I gave it to people. And what I did is I was just messing around, and I took it and I wet it down and formed it into discs about this big. And then I put different glyphs on there.
Oh, cool.
So I put one of a mouth so that you could, for wanting pure speech. I did the Eye of Horus. I did the Eye of Ra. People don't realize those are different. The right eye is the Eye of Ra. The left eye is the Eye of Horus.
Right.
And I have to pick stuff up sometimes so I can know which eye is which one.
Not a good religion for dyslexics, I guess.
It's not. One's a solar eye and one's the lunar eye. And it cracks me up to see people have like the tattoo of the eye of whomever, and I'm like, if you're gonna get that, it's kind of like if you get a Volknot in the Norse tradition. If you get that, you just made a serious commitment that you now can never take off. But yeah, I ended up with a ton of Kaifi, so I gave it to people. I made the little discs and I gave it. I was like, here, have some Kaifi. A lot of people have a lot of Kaifi still, I'm sure. People wound up with it in their Yule stockings. What is this? Where did this come from? Which, looking at Carmen, reminds me I shaped some of them in the shape of an egg.
Very cool. So earlier, Drake had asked you about afterlife, and so we were talking about that, but we didn't talk about the judgment of Ma'at.
Yeah, and that's, I think Neil Gaiman said it best when he said in American Gods that they weigh your heart against a feather, but that feather's probably made of lead. In American Gods, he said it is made of lead. So basically, you come forth and they take your heart out and they weigh it on a feather on a scale against a feather.
Right. Or in the ancient kingdom, they actually had her standing there with her arms out.
She would actually stand there. And sometimes you see like depictions of her as a scale.
Right. And just as another aside, I know modern we talk about justice, and what is justice? What is the icon of justice right now? But a woman with scales. Hello, wonder where we got that.
Yep, or another borrowing.
Yeah,
stealing.
That's okay. We Kemetics are used to it.
Yeah.
So you would stand forth, and you had to be really careful because your own heart could testify against you.
Absolutely.
Your own heart could testify against you, and the hearts of other people could testify against you.
We would say, my heart, my heart.
Yeah, there's actually spells
my mother, my heart,
in the Book of the Dead that say, the spell to keep your heart from testifying against you.
From ratting you out.
How worried would you have to be there?
Yeah. But there's also the huge negative confession, which is anywhere from 39 to 47 different things that you say. Because in ancient Egypt, the word was a thing. So if I say, this cap is now the 10,000 cap, and I give it to you, it is a representative. It actually is 10,000 bottle caps. Right. Not that you would really want that, but
no, thanks anyway.
It really would be. So they would go through and they would do the negative confession before they would do the judgment. So I never did this, and I never did that, and I never did these, and I never did those, and I certainly didn't do any of that.
I wasn't there,
and I certainly didn't stick that there.
I know nothing.
I don't know anything about it, and you can't testify against me, my heart, because I've already shut you up. And then they would weigh it, and if your heart was too heavy, they would feed you to an Egyptian as a pet.
Yeah, that little cool crocodile, hippo, lion guy.
For all times.
Done. Gone.
It was like you didn't even ever exist.
Right.
Like you never existed, and you
big
never were.
Cosmic eraser.
Yeah. And so that was like the second. That was probably the biggest fear in Egypt about dying. The second biggest fear was that you would not be buried in Egypt.
Right.
That was a huge concern. That if you died outside of Egypt, that you wouldn't be buried.
So you could go to like southern Illinois, which they call Little Egypt, to get buried, and then you'd be like right near Cairo and Memphis and all those places down there. Huh?
Yeah.
Would that work for you?
That could work for you. I've actually looked into mummification. There's a place up in Utah that does it.
I heard about that. Yeah.
It's only $65,000 to be mummified.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not cheap, but it's forever.
Yeah, that's true.
But as long as we remember your name, you're alive forever.
That's true. That's why I'm planning on buying a large building when I get some more money. I'm just renaming it like the Georgia Memorial Building.
Well, you got a state named after you, for God's sakes. How
Yeah,
long
but
is
it's
that going to
spelled
last?
differently.
Oh, okay.
It's spelled differently. My
I was
name
gonna
is
say-
Jorja,
Yeah.
which means that doesn't count.
I
Because
understand.
otherwise I'd have a whole country.
We could rename the state.
You could rename the state, that's right.
We
You
could do
guys,
that.
all
We
the
could
people
do that.
on Facebook, start a page right now to rename Georgia. to-
Well, at this point, I think, your Facebook page will probably be up forever, because I've seen that as people, they just lay them up. So it's like, as long as your Facebook page remains, you shall never be
Yeah,
forgotten
that's what
in
I should do.
history.
I should make a sex tape. Because that's a one-way.
To make sure you'll be on forever. 2,000 years from now, people say, want to watch Georgia again? She still had 5 fingers. We got
That's right.
Well, it's very intriguing. Like I said, it's been difficult to just think about trying to live different lives. And I guess you mentioned the American Gods. I mean, for me, that was, Neil Gaiman is like one in my pantheon of cool people just because of that book and how he looked at how the gods have changed when we changed. I mean, we have to let that happen too. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of things that went on 2,000-3,000 years ago that we don't really want any part of nowadays. And And so how do you feel about the religion? And do you feel it's pretty equal male-female energy-wise? I mean, there were some points in time in Egypt where that wasn't the case, that women weren't really...
Well, it's hard because women after the Old Kingdom were not priestesses as much as we would think of priestesses, but they were entertainers of and dancers, and some women would actually populate with the statues.
And show their parts to the bulls.
Yeah, and do their stuff. But there weren't as many priestesses after the Old Kingdom. It was a little bit... I think they had more contact with the outside world and saw that was...
The patriarchy.
A little bit more taboo.
That's why I'm Old Kingdom.
Old Kingdom rocks, but here's the thing about it is, you and I can't get to the Field of Reeds in the Old Kingdom because only the Pharaoh can go. So that's what's kind of rocking about the Middle Kingdom.
Yeah, but after the 6th dynasty,
things kind of just went to the heck in a chariot. Yeah.
That's right. They went to heck in a
So,
chariot.
okay, well, you know what? I think we're just about running out of
We
time.
are.
It's been delightful to meet you, and I'm looking forward to having you come back.
I'm coming back soon.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're talking
Next
sex
time we're
toys.
talking sex toys.
Sex toys.
Okay.
Absolutely.
With maybe
You're
a-
bringing the Kickstart one, right?
I'm going to bring the one together. I got some for guys.
Okay.
So if you have things you want us to talk about on the community calendar,
eggs.
you have, I know, we're doing eggs. If you have events coming up, if you have classes coming up, if you have speaking engagements or whatever it is that you would like us to talk about on the community calendar section, you have to let us know. We are not spending 24/7 combing the internet looking for that, so you have to let us know. And speaking of that, Carmen wants to show us her eggs.
Show us your eggs.
Okay. That sounds too funny. So here's what
Get a
I came
microscope.
up with. This is the one. Let's see, where are we here? This is the one that I actually had the lace wrapped around, and I wrapped lace around it, and then I put it in the fabric, and it was in the pot boiling with the cabbage. Okay, so it's kind of lacy.
Can we see that? Yeah, there we go. Move back. There you go. All right.
Okay, and then I've got another one here. This was done in the same way, except that I wrapped a couple of little purple flowers around it. And these are the little purple flower petals. These are silk flowers, or, artificial silk. And it gave it this
Chinese
neat
silk.
little pattern here. I don't know if you can see it.
I think we should just eat them.
Kind of like that. Okay, you can kind of get a little bit of an idea there. And of course, the rest of the eggs you already saw. I'm going to stick these back in here. Now we've got the. Let me look and see how much time I have left on these other ones that are boiling. Got 1 minute, but that's okay because you know what? I'm going to pull one out and let's see. This is just the egg in the water with the cabbage.
Is there any vinegar in
We
there?
don't have any color.
Is there vinegar in it, or?
There is vinegar in
Okay.
it. Water, vinegar, and so we've got no color on that one.
I think you have to wrap. I think we used to wrap the leaves. I think we used to wrap leaves around them.
But you know what? It's fun to play around and experiment with them anyway. So do what you can, play at home, have a good time.
I think the onion ones worked really well.
Hey, you know what? Why don't you do this? Why don't you guys try making your eggs
and let us know?
Take some
pictures.
pictures of them and send them to us, email them to us, and then we'll get an idea of and tell us exactly your step, what you did, step by step, what you used, and everything. And this has been a fun experiment for me. I'm going to learn how to play a little bit more, and I'll have to actually
We're going to
follow
be
the
seeding
directions.
next week, right? We're all
What's
going
that?
to seed next week.
Yes, we're going to seed.
Cool.
All right, cool.
We'll,
all right.
we'll decorate a pot, and then we'll plant something.
All right. Sounds like fun. So, everybody.
Blessed be. Till next time. See you guys in a month.
Thanks for watching Modern Pagan TV. We'll be back at the same time and the same place next week with more. If you like what you see here, please go to our website, www.modernpagan.tv, and contribute generously. And don't forget to tell all your friends about Modern Pagan TV. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and visit our site regularly. We'll see you next week with more Modern Pagan TV. To all people of all spiritual beliefs, we say good night, namaste, and blessed be.